All right. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and it is great to be back with you here on the live stream for today's audio masterclass, which is a continuation of last week, which is Ask Me Anything Audio Part 2. We had such great responses and so many great questions. I just thought I would revisit it again. Also, something which I just tweeted out a short while ago, today is a particularly special day for me because today marks my 20th anniversary here at Adobe. Yes, 20 years, it was 20 years ago today. 20 years, 20! I was thinking of Grosse Pointe Blank. 10 years! 20 years, my goodness. You always hear people say it feels like yesterday. It really kind of does, except when I look at photos. and then it doesn't feel like yesterday. In any case, it is wonderful to see you all. So we're going to have some fun today. Bring your audio questions. In the interim, if we don't have a barrage of them, I'm going to attempt to finish the mix of the soundtrack portion of the Jason versus Pennywise mini short that my little one cut together a couple months ago. We scored it here live on stream, and it's just taken me forever to just get in the mood to finish the mix. I don't know what it is, but we're going to try and do that. So, in any case, we're coming to you live on Adobe Live, YouTube, Behance, and Twitter Periscope. So thank you as always. So, of course, a great couple of shout-outs here. All right. 20 years go quick when you're having a good time. Yes, indeed, John, nice to see you. Tim, wonderful. How's it going? Steve, Festus Kosoboom, always lovely to see you. Umacorn, Megan Kissel, nice to see you. Valeria, Saya, Luna, oh my goodness, long time no see. It's been quite a while. Tim, so that means you're at least 20. Yes, ripe old age of 21. Wade, nice to see you. All right, Sanchit, JD, great. How's it going? Marsha, all right. Mia, great to see you. FM Boy, let's talk noise reduction. That sounds great. I'm all about it. Parmeshwari, nice to see you. All right. Anthony Villa, working on some auto ducking as I speak. Very good. Let me know if you run into any issues, okay? Stephen Tejas, how's it going? Christopher Munoz, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the congratulations. Benson, Trendings, love from India, nice to see you. And we've got Desiree, hey, how's it going? Thank you so much. All right, and lots of people coming to us over there on Twitter Periscope. Okay, so again, I've also got had a couple days of some very Farrah-esque hair going on here today. What is this? Just looking at myself, I look fantastic. Not bad. Okay, I need to make one quick change to my, or just verify something here. Okay, so I've got that disabled. All right, fine. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. What's up, Rosa Chinchilla, International Entertainment? How are you? Hamza Ramich, Lafeo007. Oh, thank you so much. Hamza, since you're new in Photoshop, any beginner advice? Yes, watch tutorials from Terry White. Terry White, Paul Tranny, so many others, Julianne Cost. You can find them via CC Learn. Just really, if you're really just starting in Photoshop, that's definitely the best way to go. But oops, what just happened? I just lost all my chat in front of me. What's going on? Okay, let's get back to it here. All right, cool. Steve, I would pay for a stream where a baby runs amok with audio and video gear. It's not going to be my gear. Tell you that. Made that mistake only once. With my my now teenager, I remember giving him like free reign of my then studio and mistake. Don't do that. All right. Tim, I'd love to have Julianne on Adobe Live. Yeah, she'd be amazing. She's, I believe she's teaching a bunch of courses for Adobe Max, which of course it's also worth pointing out will be, is entirely free this year. So if you're not already signed up for Adobe Max, max.adobe.com. Ron Sussman, how's it going? You should see my hair. Pawan, how are you? Samantha38G, always great to see you. Thank you. Just a little bit of narcissism on a Friday. All right, why don't we get started since I do have some work to do. Right? This is a working stream. Okay. All right, Jacob. Let's see. We're going to go from the bottom up. Of course, now everything's coming in. Thank you, Wade, for posting the Max link. Okay, so Jacob's asking here. Oh, I just lost it. There we go. While editing video, in what situations do you most often switch to Audition? At what point is the Premiere not enough? Excellent question, Jacob Galka. So, as I've said many, many times, Premiere is a very capable, extremely capable audio mixing app in the sense that you really have everything in Premiere, essentially, in terms of if you're using, VST effects, third-party effects, all of those are accessible. Anything that you could use in Audition with regard to effects can also be used in Premiere. You have a capable mixer. Notice my choice words. A capable mixer, which, again, stylized very similarly to Auditions. You have your effects inserts. You have your effects sends. This allows for you to create submixes and or buses. Things are, again, slightly titled differently between the two. You've also got, of course, all of your fader automation, with the ability to edit at the keyframe level, all of your movement and parameter interactions. So Premiere really does, it pretty much does everything. And of course, you have a master fader where you can add master effects. Like in the case of this one here, I added a little brick wall limiter on the output. All right, just to kind of top everything at around -2 dBFS. So Premiere, as far as just mixing the audio, is very capable. Now, here's one fundamental difference, which you're not necessarily going to hear, but it is different, which is that, how can I phrase this? So Audition's engine, the playback engine for audio here, has many components to it that make it as good as it's always been. And one of those, of course, is that when you're going from a master of, say, 32 or 24-bit down to 16, we have different levels of dithering that you can implement. And of course, there's some already baked into here. So it uses all the standard processes when doing bit conversions and sample rate conversions. You don't have those same dithering options in Premiere Pro. So if you're working specifically with 16-bit finalized mixes on the Premiere side, and then you export to whatever your format's going to be, whether it's ProRes or GoPro Cineform or DNxHR or DCP. If you're not converting up, you're leaving it as it is at whatever the native sample rate, and again, 16-bit, it's basically a transparent pass-through of the audio. Where there are some differences is when it's doing the mix-down conversion from, say, a 32-bit or 24-bit master. It's not something that's inherently audible. It's not something that probably most people would notice or even care about because they just don't. And we're talking about something that is, it's audio nerdery. However, depending upon the content, like if you've got acoustic music in particular, that's mixed very well, very clean, perhaps it was even recaptured at like 96K. If you do that whole conversion on the Premiere side, there is some noticeable difference in the mixdown. You may encounter some aliasing artifacts. You may encounter just this strange kind of, there's something that doesn't sound quite right. Even if you're going 96 to 48, that's not to say it's bad. It's just that it's a little bit different. So for me, I will always do the final mix on the Audition side. And then and of course, just like with here, if I send the video from Premiere, I can actually finish the entire thing right here in Audition. This is an extremely long explanation, but you asked for it, Jacob. So we can do the export directly to Media Encoder from Audition with our dynamically linked or whatever rendered video in here without going back to Premiere. In which case, we can leave it in 32-bit native or whatever we're working in, use all of the dithering and other capabilities of Audition's mixdown process, and then get the best benefits from it. So that's the reality. Again, for most things, no one's going to notice. No one's going to care. That's really how it is. And when I say that, I'm not joking. You'd be hard pressed for someone, even a good mixer, to really necessarily notice the difference if they weren't carefully listening for a difference. But there is a difference. Now, the other thing that I would say, the other main reason for going into Audition, something that Premiere does but doesn't have in great detail or depth, is that we don't have a spectral frequency display here. So if you're doing very intricate noise reduction and other sort of DSP processes that involve destructively manipulating the audio, you only have real-time effects here. You only have real-time non-destructive stuff here. So a lot of times, again, if you're doing like a very careful audio restoration, 100% of the time I will do it over on the Audition side, just because it gives you more flexibility, more visual detail, more sonic detail. You just have more available to you. And then, of course, all the other random things that Audition does, tone generation, noise generation, a slightly more advanced routing. You have a better 5.1 mixing environment on the Audition side. And by better, I just mean a bigger UI to give you more space to roam around. There's some small things like that. But in most cases, I'm doing most of the stuff on the Premiere side, with the exception of, again, like a final music mix, all right? Stan Arthur, as a 20-year Premiere user, I'm doing 99% of audio work in Premiere. However, I still go to Audition to use Remix frequently for music beds. Yes, I mean, that's a great example. So again, and Stan, great to see you. I know Stan many years. He does great productions, great work, even music videos. And again, you can do everything in Premiere. Remix is one of those exceptions. And this is something that, here, I can probably show it to you right now. Let me go ahead and solo this. Now this will be interesting because this is not exactly beat-based music. But so the Remix feature allows you to take any audio file. Maybe not on this track. This one's a little too frantic. Maybe this. Sure, why not? Okay, this is actually 2 clips here. But so what Remix will allow you to do, if you turn on Remix, just to show everybody here, this is a magnificent feature. It uses Adobe Sensei to analyze your music track. And then let's just say, I'm going to move this little cut out of the way here. Let's just say that we wanted this to fit the exact duration of our video, okay, which is approximately here. Now, I have silence at the end of this anyway. But what this is going to allow me to do, you can see if I hover over to the upper right-hand corner of my audio clip here, the icon changes. That's the Remix icon. You saw the little tooltip there. And what this will allow me to do is to drag this to any specific duration. Now, what it's going to do is it's not going to speed up or slow down the audio. It's going to, what we call, dynamically recompose the audio. So it basically re-edits the audio for you to fit a particular duration. And in this case, if I look at what it's done here, you see this little jagged line right here? This is representing the non-destructive crossfade that it implemented so that it can be this length. So if I were to play this back, you don't hear any edit because it's just crossfaded and seamless. Similarly, if I wanted to say make this super long, all right, let's extend it all the way out here, okay? It's going to do the same thing, where in this case now it's placed a different edit here, okay? And then you have a series of different controls. So you can use things like, how long do you want the edits to be? Notice I have them set to very long. What if I do it to like 50%? Well, my guess is now we're going to see more of those crossfade edits. And sure enough, we do. Now there's 2 of them in different locations. And if I wind back and play this here, by the way, it's ducking in volume there because I have a sidechain compressor added to that, okay? But it's just a really great way to automatically edit and automatically fit to fill. So, you've got a video that's a minute, you've got audio that's a minute 30. Maybe you're not comfortable editing audio, maybe you just don't want to. I love editing audio. I'm a super nerd, and I can do it quickly. But I'll admit, sometimes, especially if it's like I need something super quick and I don't really care, this is just faster, and it works great. Now, if you specifically want verse 3 to be at the beginning, and then you want chorus, chorus, verse 2, that unfortunately you're going to have to do yourself. It's an algorithm. So it's looking at beat structure, timbre, overall duration, and then it's going to just try and put things together in a cool, seamless way. But it doesn't understand song form per se. So if there's something specific that you wanted, you'd still need to do that. Now, the other really cool thing about this, by the way, and thank you for bringing this up, Stan, is that if you go into the right-click menu here, you'll see under Remix, you have split remixed clip into segments. So this is the coolest thing about this. So I can choose that option, and then notice what it does here is that it, well, first of all, it's going to group all of this together, so you can ungroup these. All right. And now what you're actually seeing, you're seeing the edited pieces stacked together. And the yellow lines that you're seeing here, this represents the crossfade that it used to match the two together, right? So you have total control over the remix, over the edit, and it's awesome. It's something that, again, you know, I don't use it all the time, but it's definitely one of those things when I need it, I absolutely go to it, and it's great. I mean, it just works really, really well. Thank you for that. Quinn Stevenson, what a time saver. Totally agree. Saya Luna, nice. Tim, I'm gonna answer you, Tim. You know, you work here. Gotta give other people a chance. I love you, man. Tim, all right, you talk a lot about compression and often use the tube compressor. When should I use which plugin, aka Dynamics Processing Tube Multiband Singleband? Tim, that's a fantastic question. Funny you mention that because I was literally just discussing this, mostly with myself, but I was discussing this with someone because I think we have way too many compressors, actually. And some of them are old, and some of them aren't great. So thank you for bringing that up. That's actually a fantastic question. So here, let's do that. Let's talk about that. Let me open up something that has some music. Okay. I think I have let me just navigate. I'm going to show you all these. I'm just going to pull up a file real quick, which I think I did a clean rough mix of very recently, or not. We'll see. Roads Resync. Stereo. All right, I have no idea what this is. Let's see. This looks like it's already been compressed. The two-tune monster. Okay, so let's just grab a little bit of this here and copy this to new. And let's also just shrink this down. Now this has already been compressed. All right. In fact, here, you know what? Let's just do this. A little snip right here. So let's talk about when to use what compressor and why. All right. So we have a whole series of different compressors in here. You'll find them under amplitude and compression. All right. So we have dynamics. Okay. Dynamics processing. We have the hard limiter, technically a limiter, not a compressor. We can talk about the differences if you want. The multiband compressor, the single band compressor, the speech volume leveler, and the tube model compressor. All of those things do compression. Right away, you're confusing people. It's just too many. And they don't all sound great. They just don't. Sorry, but it's true. Let me go down the list here. Dynamics. Oops, not dynamics processing. So dynamics, and by the way, this would be applying it destructively. If you wanted to do it non-destructively, you can apply those in the rack. So why don't I do that here? All right. So let's go to the first one, dynamics. So this is one, now this is in both Premiere and Audition. This one is particularly good for things like dialogue. I don't say it's particularly great sounding, but it's particularly good. And the reason it's good is because first and foremost, it has an auto gate. So if you have dialogue and you got a little bit of not bothersome background noise, but maybe just a little bit more room tone than you need. So you'd like it for when the person is not talking to be kind of completely silent. This has a gate built in. So it'll open up, so when there's dialogue, and when there's not dialogue, it'll close. It'll be totally silent. It's very nice. This is a common process in mixing. Love this. Then there's a compressor. Standard compressor, standard controls, standard gain reduction meter. This sounds good. I don't believe this is using any tube modeling as far as I'm aware. I don't think so. If it does, it's not particularly obvious, nor do we have any controls that accentuate tubeness. But it's good. It's a good sounding compressor. The limitations are that while it has fast attack and the release is 10 milliseconds to 500, so it has kind of on most compressors you usually get at least a second release time or 2,000 milliseconds. So it has a bit of a limited setting. But again, for dialogue, you generally don't need anything longer than 500 milliseconds. So this is particularly useful for dialogue, integrated with video. Again, it's also got an expander, also particularly useful, easy to use, and then a limiter, which kind of acts like a brick wall limiter. I don't particularly love the limiter circuitry on this one. I find it to be a little clicky and a little bit digital. But the compressor and gate setting are great for dialogue. I go to this one occasionally, largely for the noise gate, because it's just built in, easy to use, really simple. Okay. Then we have the Dynamics processor, and I've talked a lot about this one. Now this one is very good sounding. There are many cool presets in here. In fact, one of my favorites is this classic Softney. This is one that I built years ago that emulates the sound of DBX style over easy compression. In fact, if I were to just show you here, I have the very effect that it's emulating, which is the sound of this compressor right here, this 160 series, okay? So this one there are some great sounding presets. However, it's just kind of difficult to use. I mean, if you understand how to use a compressor with a graph, go for it. It has gain reduction metering. It also has kind of real-time analysis of frequency here, if I play this for you. Or I should say real-time analysis of amplitude, what am I saying? All right. And if you go into settings, you have, again, you have some of the basic settings here. So one of the things you're missing is you don't have a ratio control, which I find very disconcerting. You don't really have threshold. Of course, you're setting that via the graph here. You've got 2 stages of gain, level detection and gain processing. It's going to be really confusing to new users because this is not a standard way that compressors work. What it does have, which is awesome, is that it has band limiting. So if you wanted to say sidechain a compressor, like I was doing just before, so that allows you to auto duck. Stan was talking about auto ducking before. You can band limit what is being compressed. So say you only want to compress bass frequencies on a track, or you only want to compress mid-range, or you only want to compress a range of frequency. See, you have your low and high cutoff here. This is going to allow you to do that. This is our only compressor that has band limiting options. So that alone makes it super useful. It also does noise gating, downward expansion. Again, it's good sounding. The makeup gain is here, which is odd. It's not standard and it's not a go-to. It sounds good. And the presets, some of them are really good, but again, they're just not always going to work right away. You always have to adjust threshold. You probably always need to adjust makeup gain. So it can get very unruly and unwieldy very quickly. I mean, if I were to just go to something here like maximum pumping. Okay, I'm not even going to play this back yet, but you see right away, like this has the makeup gain at plus 20 dB. This track is already super hot. So this is going to be either super freaking loud, possibly distorted. There's no brick wall limiting here, meaning that there's no digital ceiling necessarily. And from what it looks like, oh no, we have a ratio of 21:1, so technically that's limiting. So perhaps it won't go above 0, but it's just you're playing with fire. Good sounding, not a standard way of setting compression. I don't recommend that for the new user. Multiband compressor. Now this one, again, is a combo. So this has 4 bands of compression. You can determine which bands you want to compress. So this is really good for final mixes in particular. You have the ability to control the bass frequency, the low frequencies, the low mids or mids and high frequencies. And of course you can adjust the cutoff points if you see above here on the graph. So you can say, all right, the low band is going to be, 0 to 100. This band will be 100 to say 1200 hertz. The third band is 1200 to 5600, just below the sibilance level. And then the high band is 5600 all the way up to 24K. Standard controls, thratio, gain, ratio, attack, release. Standard, nice gain reduction metering, input level metering. It's really nice. It has the brick wall limiter. So again, this is particularly useful because you can say, I want to set a margin of -3. And that means that your audio will never exceed -3 dBFS. And then you can adjust the threshold here to bring additional amplitude to it. So just to showcase that, let me turn off the compression circuitry here. I'll show you the brick wall limiter in particular is very good. This is also tube modeled. Take a quick listen here. We're going to be able to make this nice and loud. So again, that margin says never go above -3. And as you just saw me showing you on the meters down below, -3 it is. This one, for my money, very musical sounding. It has its own sound, but again, I think it's very musical. It sounds very good on any kind of musical element. It sounds great on dialogue. It sounds great as an overall brick wall booster for a Premiere mix. This one I go to a lot. It sounds great. It's got a pretty UI, but most importantly, it's just standard controls, standard configuration, easy to understand what it's doing. I love this one. This one is really multi-purpose, good for anything, okay? And then we get into the bottom 3. So let's start from all the way at the bottom. Talking a lot about compression, but this is stuff you need to know, and this will help you in any NLE or DAW. Of course, these are specific to our effects, but this will awaken you to the fact that not all compressors are created equal. They're just not. So our tube-modeled compressor basically borrows, I think, one of the modules from the multiband. So this is just like a single band version of the multiband compressor. The 5 standard controls, gain reduction metering, threshold metering here. It just works. It sounds great. I use this one a lot. You see me use it a lot on stream. Good for vocals, good for dialogue, good for bass guitar, good for kick drums. Again, if I look at the settings here, yeah, so this one, you can see the attack goes all the way to 0. So that's the other thing. Remember the dynamics effect? 0.1 millisecond was as low as it goes. Here we go to 0. And the release time on this one, yeah, see, it goes way up. So it probably goes to 3, 4, 5. 5,000 milliseconds, right? So remember the dynamics effect, which I said is really just good for sort of dialogue, 500 milliseconds. Here we get a 5-second release because this is meant to be used on sort of musical elements. So this one it just sounds great. And I go to this for a lot. You can really use it multi-purpose for anything, okay? And the more that you understand how compression works, you have the flexibility here to work with it. Now, just to keep in mind too, so someone I'm sure has already asked, compression and limiting are the same effect. The difference is the ratio that's being implemented. So ratios of 10 to 1 and below, and the ratio means for every 10 decibels, it exceeds the threshold that you set. It's 1 dB at the output. Ratios below 10 to 1 are compression. Ratios above 10 to 1, 12 to 1, 20 to 1, infinity to 1, you sometimes see that on hardware compressors. That denotes limiting, okay? So, and it's a different effect, right? Compression, the concept is you're squashing down out-of-band peaks. Limiting is you're squashing down out-of-band peaks, but you're also bringing up quieter sections. So you're kind of doing this, which is funny because as I do that, you're like, well, isn't that compressing? Squeezing down. Well, you're doing a combination of things with limiting. So, and they have different effects and different sounds. And if you want something that's really kind of pumpy and breathy, You know, think like Ringo Starr drums from the late 60s, Bonham. You hear a lot of like compression and limiting on his kick drum. Higher ratios will achieve really affected sounding compression. This one is great. Not going to spend a lot of time on these two because I'm just going to tell you this single band compressor, dump this. Just don't use this. If you're using it, fine, good, great, good for you. There's no metering. There's no way to know what you're setting. I don't even understand why this is here, and it's like 5 sliders. So if you're a compression nerd, maybe you can set this, but you literally have to use your ear to hear how it's kicking in, what the release time is, and how the threshold is affecting the ratio. There's no metering on this. So I don't recommend this to anybody, ever. And it even looks like it has the same presets as the other one, but there's no metering in here. So dump this one, don't bother with that. And then this speech volume leveler, this is, again, basically a compressor. Notice it has boost low signals, so this implements limiting. The only nice thing about this is that it allows you to target an average volume level. So you're not targeting peak, you're targeting average, and then your leveling amount is just a single slider. So this is kind of doing the threshold and ratio setting in the background for you. I'm going to be honest, I find this one, and notice there's like separate compression and noise gate settings. I just find this one to be noisy. It never gives me a super clean kind of result. And look at even the presets, careful, medium, soft, strong. I mean, use it if it can work on something. It's not that it can't, it's not that you couldn't make it sound good. For my ears, it always sounds digital. It always sounds kind of processed. And I'm not a huge fan. All right. So the go-tos, tube model compressor, multiband compressor, dynamics processor if you're feeling brave and experimental, and the dynamics effect for a combination of noise gate and easy compression. Great for dialogue, great for Premiere, great for documentary style stuff. It's very clean and it works really well. Okay. Shantanu Agarwal, my mixer says it has high ratio compressor and basically it's a DBX limiter. Yes, yes, exactly. I have a whole rack of old school DBX ones down here. I still keep them and occasionally use them because they just sound wonderful. Armando, in the effects rack input and output volume, to apply correctly, an effect is better that the volume the same in that it is on the input. So Armando, that and he's referring to these input-output meters here. So yes, no. In terms of compression, and I've talked about this, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but when you're compressing a signal, if you've just applied the correct amount of compression based on your threshold and ratio setting, when you enable or disable the effect, again, assuming you have the threshold set properly based on the ratio you're using, the output should, in theory, be the same, except it should just be compressed. And then you can use makeup gain to give it a little more boost. So you'd be making the output different. Now, that's in terms of compression, because a compressor limiter is really, it's an amplifier. So generally, you're not keeping the volume levels the same. You are adding a little bit of boost because that's also going to add a little bit of punch. Now, when you apply things like reverb or other delay-based effects, that could be anything from flange or phase or delay or echo. Again, it depends on how you have the effect set. You know, in the case of something like this analog delay, this one has some really cool settings around like feedback and then trashing subsequent delays. So what can happen is when you add delay feedback, you're re-amplifying the signal over top of itself. So the amplitude is going to get louder and louder and louder over time. That's kind of the nature of using delay feedback. So your input-output aren't going to be the same, right? If you're adding some like subtle reverb to something, and again, you don't want to change the output, you just want to have reverb behind it, then yes, you can theoretically keep them around the same. But generally, they're not mutually exclusive. They don't really relate to one another, except that they're giving you a reference. You know, if you have a super quiet input and you put something through an effect and it's still super quiet, then it's probably telling you that you need some amplitude, right? You don't necessarily want to keep it at the same level, but that's a great question. All right. Let's see. Rohit, can we save the stack of effects applied to an audio file without saving it as a preset, i.e. in the Audition file itself for future use and reference? Rohit, that's a great question. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to save a preset. So the short answer is you can save a configuration of rack effects in a multi-track session without saving a preset. So let's say, I'll just show you right now. So let's go to these strings right here, okay? So I'm going to add a tube model compressor, and I'm going to add studio reverb. I'm just grabbing effects here, by the way, okay? And I'll add some analog delay, and I will add a parametric equalizer. Now, I'm not going to save a preset. If I wanted to save this stack of effects as a reusable preset, I could do that right here, save effects rack as preset. But if I just want to save this stack of effects without applying them, if I save the session, okay, test, close it. What's Untitled 1? I don't know what Untitled 1 is. No. And then reopen it. There's all of our effects again. And I didn't have to save a preset. But there's no way otherwise. You can't save a rack. If you're asking if you can do it in the waveform view here without creating preset, the answer is no. You have to create a preset. But then it remains non-destructive anyway. Okay? So great question. Okay. When would you ever use 0 milliseconds as an attack level and or 5,000 milliseconds for the release? So yeah, I mean, you might use 0 if you've got, a sportscaster or someone talking who's they're all over the place dynamically. You might use a 0 millisecond attack. And depending upon how they're talking on mic, that might work just fine, and you won't get, sometimes with too fast of an attack on a compressor, particularly for instruments, kick drum is a good example, or snare drum. You typically will find, again, based on the tempo of the song, to get that kind of crack of the snare or the thump of a kick drum, your attack time is generally, it's not an absolute, somewhere between, it could be anywhere from maybe 9 or 12 milliseconds, that's a bit fast. Usually somewhere between like 18 and 25 milliseconds, which is going to give you enough of the initial attack of the snare, but then also give you kind of the fat. And depending upon your ratio, that'll control how much of the fatness of the snare or the boominess of the kick drum that you'll retain. The release in conjunction with that, now 5-second release is a very long time. But again, in terms of like dialogue, if you just want to keep everything minimized, you'd probably use, I don't know really when you use a 5,000 millisecond release, but there are times, especially when you have continuously loud, limited music, which is never going to, you want it to be limited always. You can keep it at a 1 to 3,000 millisecond release time, because what that means is because it's constantly exceeding that threshold, it'll just stay limited, stay compressed the entire time. And then maybe at the very end, bow, after the, the crash, the end, it's like something like this. All right. After 3 seconds, then the compressor returns to its nominal state. But it's compressed or limited everything else in the interim. So that's the only reason you would use some broadcast programming, and I mean like broadcast TV, broadcast radio, use extremely long release times for that very reason. It just guarantees that everything stays virtually compressed and the compressor doesn't recover, okay? Nice. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ant Pruitt. What's up, man? Appreciate that. Okay, Tim. Way too many reverbs. Okay, now see, I'll disagree with you there because all reverbs have truly different characteristics and different sounds. My only comment with our native reverbs is that some of these, as you know, like reverb and convolution, and I think full, they're old, so they weren't designed to be super real time. question, when do you use which ones? So again, they all have slightly different characteristic sounds. The convolution reverb uses a series of different impulses to showcase real sampled environments. So, in the case of like inside the shower, door closed, very specific. This is meant to actually, sound just like that. So if we were to play this back, let's see. There's already some. So here's dry. Oh, that really sounds like we're in the shower. Maybe a hall. Let's hear that one. Yeah, it's okay. These impulses are good, all right? And they're going to truly sort of mimic different real spaces. A lot of sliders, no metering. It's not beautiful, but it sounds good. And, one of the keys to a good mix, also to open up a mix, is to use different reverbs. I talked about this on one of our recent streams. If you mix everything with the same reverb all the time, you're going to end up with something muddy because you're using the same, even though you could create a hall or a plate or something else, there are certain characteristics which they're just common to the effect itself. So using different reverbs, even for creating the same type of room or hall or whatever, can create some contrast in your audio mix. Full reverb in particular, this one is really neat and again unique because this actually allows you to truly numerically recreate the dimensions of a space. So you'll notice here, first of all, you have specific reverberation settings. So decay time, pre-delay. This is particularly useful if you're trying to recreate things like chamber reverbs. We talked about chamber reverb a couple weeks ago here on the masterclass. You need pre-delay if you're trying to emulate chambers. Not all of our effects have pre-delay. This one is very good. Diffusion, perception, again, absorbent to reflective. Absolutely necessary if you're trying to recreate the sound of a chamber. These are wonderful. But more importantly, you have this room size control here. And you can see it's showcasing in meters cubed, dimensions, left-right location, high pass cutoffs, set reverb based on room size, and then it'll even calculate the room dimensions for you. So, and then you have separate sliders here. So this is effectively your reverb mixer, your wet dry level, the reverb level, early reflections. And then additionally, you have an EQ, which can affect, you can see we call it coloration. So this one is, again, very technical, very nerdy. But if you're really trying to recreate or simulate a specific room dimension, this one is great for that. There's lots of cool presets in here. God, I haven't gone in here in forever. I made a lot of these years ago. A lot of these are also, they're experimental, God, this is still in here. Violin, harp, C, horn, hall. I mean, I made this probably 20 years ago. Let's hear what that sounds like. It's got some nice space to it. So that's the thing. They all have different characteristics. They're all good. Like I said, my only caveat is, particularly with this reverb one, it's just not meant to be used in real time. And this one has kind of, you can see, this has like part of the settings of the full reverb. Decay, pre-delay, diffusion, perception, and then just output. So like this one, we could probably do without this one. And it doesn't work really super well in real time. But it's good. It sounds really good. I will say, our reverbs sound good. They do have slightly characteristic sounds, and that's why I and many of you will use things like Waves plugins or other manufacturer plugins for different room environments. Really, really common stuff. All right? Elizabeth Yorick from St. George, Utah. How are you? Okay. Let's go back here to the bottom. Okay. Elizabeth, I videoed a friend of mine on my DSLR Canon T6 in a basement while she was singing ABBA's Take a Chance on Me. The audio sounds horribly noisy. Any suggestions? Yeah, Well, it's hard to tell what noise, if you're talking about actual noise like fan noise, or if it was in kind of a boxier room. There's other things to consider there. Here, let me see if I can find those files. So yes, we have lots of noise reduction effects. So let me show you some of those. Hold on, what am I doing? I want to open up. Let's open up a file here. There we go. I think it's going to be in 2020. D-reverb, D-noise. Is my drive offline? Why is that gray? I hear it. I hear it turning. Okay. No, it's there. Okay. So let me grab these. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I have the open dialog. Darn it. Trying to drag from the Finder. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. So again, I don't know what your situation is. So here's a clip that has some really, again, this is me, real, not treated or anything, with like a really loud pool motor behind me.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises.
And let's make this louder on stream so you can hear it better.
Not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me.
Okay. Now, there's quick and dirty, and there's technical and nerdy. Not a bad rhyme right there. Quick and dirty first. If you go into noise reduction, we have the denoiser here. This was introduced in Audition about 2 years ago. This one is very simple. It's very, very good. It's limited, but it does some pretty amazing stuff. Here's how it works. First, you choose the focus of the noise that you're wanting to remove. And these represent different frequency curves. So this means it's focusing on removing noise across all frequencies, primarily low frequencies, mid frequencies. And you see this is showcasing like an EQ curve. Like if you pull down the bass and you pull down the treble, it just leaves the mid-range. That's what that represents. This is the opposite of that. It focuses on low and high, but it doesn't touch the mid-range. And then this one focuses on high. In the spectral frequency display here, we got like broadband noise, right? All of this. So I'm going to use all frequencies just for giggles here. And when I play this back, I'm going to adjust that slider, and you'll see how it begins to just in real time attenuate that noise.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noise.
All right. Now, it's a little artifacted. I'm removing like 70% of it, but it's running in real time, all right? And that stuff is really loud, so maybe if I back it off to like 60.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises.
Okay, let's take it off.
Not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me.
Okay. And maybe this would work a little better if we do like the high-low. Let's see if that impacts it greatly.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises.
See, now that one, because we've got a lot of that and a lot of kind of it's not as artifacted in the vocal mid-range, so this setting actually works pretty well. Quick and dirty, it works great. Sometimes it just knocks it all out. You know, if you did 100%, this will be noise-free.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises.
It's a little artifacted, but if you had music under this, and it's going to YouTube, I don't think many people would even notice that much. I mean, I would never necessarily use 100%, but you could. Here's the before.
Hi, this is Jason Levine.
And here's the after.
Hi, this is Jason Levine.
All right. So you really have to just go with what sounds good, right? Now, that's one way to do it. The other way, which is the longer form, nerdier way, is to actually take a profile of the noise. Now, we've only got 5 more minutes, and I've got tons of tutorials on here about doing noise reduction, but the quick way to show you is, and I would probably do this in 2 or 3 steps. would be to identify just an area that's just noise. And I can see we've got some bird tweets. So I don't want to select those. I'm really focusing on just the noise itself. Okay, and notice I didn't even go much above 8K. So there's just the noise behind me. Right click, capture a noise print, go into noise reduction process, select entire file. And now I've got all of these different settings. Again, I'm not going to describe all of them now, but you can go to one of the previous masterclasses to find that. But this one just gives you more control so that you can really more carefully attenuate the noise so that you don't really hear it. Maybe it's still there without kind of affecting the voice as much, right? So let's just see what we got here with where we're at right now.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial,
So let me see if we do a little spectral decay on this. And I might need to adjust some of the, again, I don't want, we've only got 4 more minutes.
I'm going to show you how to remove consistent noises. Not the birds, but consistent noise like that pool filter you hear behind me.
Okay.
Hi, this is Jason Levine, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to remove...
So let's just say I did something like that, okay? Now what I could do is do a second pass on some of this low frequency noise. I don't know if that's coming through. It's very quiet on stream. But like, and I could just zap that noise out by itself. Again, I would normally do this in multiple passes and could get it super, super clean, okay? Lots of different options there, and I highly recommend checking out my Audio 101 series for that too, all right? In the editor view, how can I copy an effect to another track, like copy and paste? Only in the mixer view is possible. Copy an effect. You're asking like if you have something like this, like an analog delay on something? Is that what you mean? Yeah, so unfortunately, there's no direct copy-paste of the effect. You can, of course, create a preset in the rack and reuse that. It's easier to do in the multitrack, yes. Here's the thing, though. If you set an effect like this delay, let's just do everything at 100, all right? Just so you'll see what I mean in a second here, okay? So I said everything at 100, and now I'm going to, let's apply it to this, okay?
Hi, this is Jason.
Okay. Now if I were to go to another file here, and if I were to pull up that analog delay, oh, it didn't retain my settings. It's supposed to. Hold on, wait a second. Hold on. Wait a minute, undo. Let me see if I do the last applied rack. There you go. Okay. So if you, that was my bad. So if you do this setting, so let's say you apply it to something, in the menu here, you can choose last applied rack, and it will retain the settings that you just applied. Not as ideal as copy paste, but if you're going to be performing this across multiple things, kind of makes it easy to do that. All right, that's a little Moog for you right there. That is slick. Okay. Elizabeth, oh, that you love it. Oh, you already watched the audio series. Okay. Yes, individual frequency captures. That's kind of the key. And because you can visually identify all the different noises, it just makes it easier. And thank you for being understanding about that. I didn't want to get into the whole thing. Okay, last one. I need to mix my drums live. I use Analog Mixer to mix out of the box and monitor, record using Audition. Is there a way to add a 2-second delay, like a 2-second timer on cameras, while monitoring the input? So that would have to be something that you could do. You know, you typically don't want any delay when you're monitoring the input because otherwise you wouldn't be able to play in time with yourself. So Audition's multitrack has built-in automatic delay compensation. If you were trying to create an artificial delay, gosh, I don't know how you do it in terms of monitoring. I guess technically, if you, I mean that I don't know if that'll change that. Yeah, I guess it would. If you change your buffer size, okay, so this will give you a delay in your phones. So again, ultimately you want no delay. So if we wanted to do like a slapbacky delay, it could do 256 or 512. I don't really know why you'd want to do that, so maybe I need more context there. But adjusting the I/O buffer to a higher level will give you a delayed input monitor. But then if you were trying to overdub on top of yourself, you would be delayed. So it would be very difficult to record like a guitar over that. Maybe I'm not exactly sure what you're asking there, but okay. P-Prem, while recording a film, audio operator enabled echo in the mixer. How do I de-echo? If it's actual echo, my friend, I'm afraid you're probably going to be kind of stuck. Echo is bad. But with that, unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you so much. We've got the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge coming up. Stick around for that. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.